Chapter 76-882. Looking at the fanatical and crazy faces of the people around him, Shui felt terrified for a second. If such craziness were to spread within every one of the clansmen, then no doubt only destruction is waiting for the Uchiha clan. Making up his mind, Shui stood up and said, "Fugaku-sama, I believe force is not the only solution to every problem, moreover the Uchiha clan isn't strong enough to face the entire village on its own. If the Uchiha clan really fought against the village, then only destruction awaits us." "Shui, what are you talking about? Are you being afraid? Everyone knows that Uchiha is the most powerful. As long as we get rid of Sandaime, the position of Hokage will belong to the Uchiha clan and the whole village will have to recognize us." The room was getting noisier by the second. Cough. Uchiha Fugaku finally couldn't sit silently and coughed lightly to stop the mess the Uchiha were making. Shui decided to not give in this time. Blind actions will only lead Uchiha clan to destruction. Uchiha Fugaku took a deep look at Shui, then waved his hand. "Okay, that'll be it for today, disperse." With Uchiha Fugaku's order, everyone suppressed their urge to continue and one by one got up and left. Walking alone towards his home, Shui covered his eyes with his hand and thought silently, maybe I awakened the Manjikyu to be able to save the clan, but can Koto Amitsukami really change the fate of the Uchiha? Hyuga clan, Kuroto's home. Looking at the scroll of four symbols seal in his hands, Kuroto was thoughtful. The difficulty of learning the four symbols seal is much higher than his expectations. It not only involves shape transformation of chakra, but this technique highly revolves around nature transformation of chakra. In fact, it isn't strange either, considering that many powerful forbidden techniques were actually developed using four symbols seal as the basis. While Kuroto was pondering, you walked inside carrying the fragrant dishes. Smelling the rich fragrance, Kuroto was brought out of his thoughts and said to her with a smile, "Ha, it smells good, what's so special today?" However, Kuroto didn't get the answer he expected. After putting the dish on the table, you sat beside him silently with her head down. A long silence. She didn't speak anything, he didn't speak anything either. Finally, Kuroto couldn't take it anymore, so after a sigh, he brought her closer for a hug. In his embrace, you finally couldn't hold it, and tears started to come out. "There was no news from you, Kuroto-kun, even Hizashi-sama also said he has no information about you. I thought you had an accident." Kuroto didn't speak anything, just let her vent. To ease her, he rubbed the back of her head softly. After a few minutes, you finally calmed down, and then Kuroto whispered, "Didn't I tell you already, don't worry too much, or you'll get grandma wrinkles, and if that happens." Listening to Kuroto making fun of her, you humphed, as she started to get up and take the dish back. Now Kuroto was in a panic. Okay, sorry. I was just trying to ease you a bit. One more time, and I won't forgive you." Alright, no more teasing. "But haven't I told you already, to not worry? In fact, this mission wasn't that dangerous, we just needed to hide." "Yeah, that's right, just hide, and do some work, plus I get to be the hero of the village, although most of the villagers will never know of this, that's beside the point, but anyway, shouldn't you be prouder or something?" You looked at Kuroto-kun trying to reassure her and said with a pout, "You always do this, always lie to me about the dangerous things and talk as if they were nothing." "Well, what can I say? I am just that strong, dangerous things are just some time pass for me," Kuroto said with a fake arrogant snort. That brought a chuckle out of you. He. "Alright, fine, but you have to promise to be careful, Kuroto-kun." "Of course, I will," Kuroto said with a smile. "Anyway, what is the situation of clan because of all this fiasco?" Kuroto asked, quickly changing the subject. You sighed in a depressed mood at Kuroto-kun's question, including Aina-chan's father. More than a dozen members died in the conflict this time. Hyuga Aina is Yu's neighbor, only a few years younger than her. Aina's father Hyuga Takashi was one of the elites among the Hyuga clan. With Hyuga Takashi's death, the number of elites can already be counted with 10 fingers. That is to say, the Hyuga clan lost many ninjas in the Third Shinobi War, as well as now. When Kuroto thinks of all the orphans left within the clan, he feels really sad about them. Unfortunately, Kuroto is unable to do anything for them, which makes him more depressed. "Kuroto-kun, Hayashi-sama said that when you are free, go to see him. Patriarch wants to have a talk with you." Yu's words again brought Kuroto out of his thoughts. Kuroto nodded. Now he can activate and deactivate his Tenseigan freely, there is no need to hide away from the clansmen. After having the meal with you, Kuroto walked towards the center of the Hyuga clan. Although the Hyuga didn't isolate themselves like the Uchiha, most of the clansmen still lived around the patriarch's house, so the Hyuga clan land is also like a smaller village within Konoha. When Kuroto arrived at patriarch's house, he didn't even have to knock. A servant opened the door. The servant greeted Kuroto politely. "Kuroto-sama, patriarch is waiting for you inside." Kuroto was in a trance upon hearing the servant. This is the first time he was referred to by Lord, and the servant who called as such was a chunin. Such a thing was impossible in the past. Coming out of his dazed state, Kuroto calmly walked into Patriarch's house, and after walking in through a corridor, Kuroto finally saw the head of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hayashi. "Patriarch." Kuroto greeted Hayashi-sama with a polite bow. Hyuga Hayashi, who was seated calmly on a zabuton, nodded calmly. "Sit down." As he got seated on a zabuton opposite Hyuga Hayashi, Kuroto asked, "Hayashi-sama wanted to see me?" After a moment of silence, he asked, "Uchiha Shisui is your teammate in the Umbu department, right?" "Yes, Hayashi-sama. And I am sure you are aware of the Uchiha situation in the village, right, Kuroto-kun?" Kuroto frowned slightly at Hayashi's question. "What, do you mean, Hayashi-sama?" Seeing the confused face of Kuroto, Hayashi decided to be a little blunt. The conflict between Konoha and Cloud exposed Hokage factions' complete distrust and suspicion on the Uchiha. Therefore, I am a little concerned over what the Elder Council might be planning against the Uchiha. As the patriarch of one of the major clans of the Konoha village, Hyuga Hayashi fully understands the importance of balance. Whether the village eradicates the Uchiha clan or the Uchiha clan takes control of the village, both the situations are unacceptable for the Hyuga clan. When the Uchiha and the Hokage faction are in balance, only then the Hyuga clan will not become the target of either side and will be able to preserve itself. But this balance that has been maintained for many decades has now collapsed and the weight is turning against the Uchiha clan. In the eyes of discerning people, a fierce conflict is brewing, and this conflict is something that most would not want to see or be part of. Hayashi continued, with the near disappearance of the Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan, the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan are the only few of the major noble shinobi clans left. If the destruction of the Uchiha is allowed, the prestige of the Hyuga clan will also fall. Whereas if the Uchiha take control of the Konoha village through unacceptable means, we will inevitably be susceptible and weakened more than we already have become. Therefore, I hope that you can do some things to prevent either of this situation from happening using your identity as an Umbu. How Shisui is the only Umbu within the Uchiha clan, Kuroto is also a similar case. So, the Hyuga clan now greatly values Kuroto. Therefore, asking Kuroto for doing such a thing is a natural course of action. Kuroto also didn't deny and immediately agreed, "I understand, Hayashi-sama." When it comes to the matter of dealing with the Uchiha, Kuroto's opinion aligns with that of the intentions of the clan, that is, the Uchiha cannot be allowed to disappear. Why is the reputation of the Hyuga so high? Isn't it because the Hyuga is valued as an equal to the Uchiha clan? But if the Uchiha clan were to disappear, the Hyuga clan will become the next target. After all, the Dojutsu Kekkai Genkai surpasses all other types of Kekkai Genkai, and this is the very reason why they have a lot of enemies. After discussing a little more about the situation about the Uchiha, Hayashi then took out a bingo book and handed them to Kuroto while saying, "You better be careful from now on." Kuroto was a little confused. Why would Hayashi-sama say something like this? But when he took the papers from Hayashi-sama's hands, there was a single page that caught his attention. On that page, he saw a picture of his along with some description about him, and a bounty underneath with too many zeros. Upon counting the number of zeros, he finally exclaimed, 20 million ryo. However, without waiting for Kuroto to be out of shock, Hayashi leisurely handed another paper to him while saying, "Here, this is a second one." Kuroto quickly took the second reward list, and this reward list also had his picture with the same number of zeros, but the amount exceeded the previous one. TW 25 million ryo. Why such a high reward? Hayashi-sama didn't care too much about his outburst or shock and said leisurely, "I am afraid you have offended some big shots. Such high rewards are too rare and will most likely attract some bounty ninjas. So, be careful and not leave the village casually." After some detailed inquiry, Kuroto was surprised to find that all the 4 members of Team 11 had a bounty of 20 million ryo on their heads. These bounties should be Cloud Village's handiwork, right? This was Kuroto's thought. If the Team 11 of Umbu Black Ops has hatred against anyone, then no doubt it is the Cloud Village and the Rock Village. Compared to Rock Village, Kuroto feels that Cloud Village is more likely to have issued these bounties. But there is one thing I don't understand, how come Cloud Village has the specific information on the 4 of us? I get that Yujito ni saw our faces when we used the shadow clone jutsu, but just from knowing our faces Cloud Village shouldn't have such specific information about Team 11. Could it be that their spies have infiltrated into the Umbu? This sudden thought made Kuroto a little panicked. The Umbu directly under Hokage-sama are personally selected by Hokage, and the members could be anyone from the common civilian ninja to the son of the patriarch of the most prominent clan. If there are spies that have infiltrated the village for a long time, then it could only mean that they have not shown any flaw to reveal their identity as of yet and somehow been selected within the Umbu. I have to be more careful now if what I think is really true. Immediately afterward, Kuroto thought of the second bounty. The second bounty is 5 million ryo higher than the first bounty, reaching a terrifying amount of 25 million ryo. Such bounties are only offered to the most elite ninjas of a shinobi village. But the strange thing is that only Kuroto has this second bounty, that is to say, other than him no one of the Team 11 has been issued this bounty. This undoubtedly implies that the person who issued this bounty has personal vengeance against him, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the Team 11. It can only be him, right? Thought Kuroto. Kuroto-kun. Seeing Kuroto's look, Hayashi thought that Kuroto was a little worried about the bounties, so he explained, "Don't worry too much, Kuroto-kun. For a shinobi, the bounty in the black market is also a manifestation of her merit. After all, only powerful shinobi are awarded bounties." Kuroto nodded at Patriarch's explanation. It's not that he was scared, but just a little concerned is all about the person who offered a bounty for his head. Taking a light sip of tea, Hayashi continues, "Do you know what is the bounty on my head in the black market?" "How much?" Hayashi said lightly, 100 million ryo. Kuroto smiled nervously at such an amount. "Ha ha ha, the patriarch deserves it." In fact, Kuroto also understands that the 100 million ryo isn't a bounty on the patriarch just as an individual, but a reward for the treasure of the Hyuga clan, the Byakugan. The Byakugan can only be stolen from the main family of the Hyuga clan, and the number of people in the main family is very less. So, as long as Hyuga Hayashi is killed, it is possible to not only obtain the Byakugan but also cause damage to the Hyuga clan. So, this reward of 100 million ryo is quite right. After some more casual discussions with the patriarch, Kuroto bid goodbye and left. Walking slowly towards his house, as Kuroto walked by a narrow alley, a figure suddenly walked out of the shadow blocking his way. Kuroto was a little stunned, and immediately took out the Kusanagi sword at his waist as well activated the Byakugan, along with taking a defensive stance. A frail-looking old man walked out of the shadow with the support of a cane. He had a cold face, black, shaggy hair, with the right eye bandaged and an X-shaped scar on his chin. The man wore a white shirt, with a blackish robe over the top of it covering from his feet to just over his shoulder. Looking at the defensive stance of Kuroto, the old man spoke coldly, "Special Jonin Hyuga Kuroto, you should be aware of just who I am, right?" Kuroto immediately deactivated the Byakugan and nodded, "Yes, Danzo-sama." It was none other than Shimura Danzo who blocked Kuroto's path. Shimura Danzo, the Shadow of Hokage, founder and leader of the Root, notorious as the Darkness of the Shinobi, at the same time one of the four advisor of the Konoha Council. Taking a deep look at Hyuga Kuroto, Shimura Danzo stated, "Hyuga Kuroto, you have talent. There is no future for you in the Umbu under Hokage. Join Root, there you will have everything needed for you to grow into a loyal Konoha shinobi." Danzo's tone was cold, it didn't seem like he was trying to entice Kuroto at all, there was great confidence in his approach, which implied that the conditions he offered were something that Hyuga Kuroto could not refuse. However, Kuroto replied without even a second of hesitation, "I am sorry Danzo-sama. As a member of Umbu directly under Hokage-sama, all transfer must follow his arrangements." Danzo's eye narrowed at Kuroto's answer and he spoke with a cold tone, "If the old man remembers correctly, this is the second time you have refused to join the Root. Back when Kuroto was briefly detained after Orochimaru's defection, at that time also Kuroto refused solicitation from the Root. But back then he was merely a wartime chunin, a disposable cannon fodder level character, so Shimura Danzo didn't care at all. After all, Hyuga Kuroto would have eventually died in the cleansing anyway. So, why bother? Unfortunately, not only did he not die, but seemed to have changed completely, and within a few months, his strength not only reached high enough to become a special Jonin but also defeated 3 Uchiha with Jonin-class combat power. And not long ago he was recruited by the Hokage in the Umbu and completed the secret mission under Hokage's orders. A young man who is in full swing. Obviously, Danzo will personally come to recruit such an individual into his Root. However, Kuroto's refusal without a moment of hesitation left Danzo dissatisfied. Facing Shimura Danzo's double-meaning question, Kuroto completely turned a deaf ear to it. Please forgive me, Danzo-sama, I am not interested in joining the route. Young man, every decision must be made carefully, otherwise, you may regret it in the future. Leaving this sentence, Danzo walked away in the darkness. Looking at Danzo's figure walking away with complete confidence upon himself, as if everything was under his control, Kuroto only had a condescending smirk. Danzo didn't realize this, but Kuroto had discovered the bastard hidden in the shadows the moment he turned towards this alley. All that panic and drawing out his Kusanagi sword was just an act to cover up activating the Byakugan and check Danzo's current state. Obviously, his performance wasn't in vain, and he was able to discover that the current Danzo had already transplanted Hashirama cells and Sharingan in his entire arm that was hidden inside the dark robe. It makes sense that he has almost stopped making any public appearance for some time. Although he can only sigh, Kuroto has to also think of some countermeasures against Danzo. He has naturally not forgotten the fact that the village had planned to dispose of him in the cleansing. After several investigations and based on the information provided by Orochimaru, Shimura Danzo is the person who took charge of that task. In fact, it was Shimura Danzo who emphasized on the cleansing. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether Shimura Danzo tries to recruit him or not, Kuroto will not let off the old bastard so easily. However, the information he obtained this time did surprise him slightly. Obviously, Orochimaru and Danzo's relationship should have fallen apart, but Danzo was still able to obtain Uchiha Shin's hand? Or, did he transplant that hand from some other source? No, that can't be. Or, did he again started cooperating with Orochimaru? Otherwise, him being able to get Hashirama cells with Sharingan transplanted, shouldn't be that easy. Now, it's not that Danzo doesn't have a study in research of Hashirama cells. In fact, in this field he might even surpass Orochimaru, although the last part sounds ridiculous, but you never know. But, recreating an entire hand is not a joke. Anyway, the fact that he already has that hand shows that he has been collecting the Sharingan of deceased Uchiha for a long time, otherwise, he couldn't have obtained so many Sharingan before Uchiha's extermination by Itachi. Because there is no curse seal in the Uchiha clan like that of Cage Bird, so obtaining Sharingan is relatively easy, at least for Danzo, who has the entire route as his personal force. I am afraid that even if the Uchiha clan didn't have any intention of a coup d'état, Danzo wouldn't have allowed them to live peacefully. After all, if he did, how would he have obtained so many Sharingan? Kuroto thought while walking towards his house quietly. It's really troublesome. Danzo's obsession with the Sharingan is even deeper than Orochimaru's. Being a disciple of Senju Tobarama, a friend and rival of Sandim-sama, and a long-term advisor of the Konoha Council, even without that hand, Danzo's strength should be close to Kage class, otherwise, how could he be so obsessed with the position of Hokage? And now that he has transplanted Hashirama cells along with many Sharingan, his strength may have even surpassed Sandim-sama to a certain extent. One can't be too careful when it comes to problems that involve the Uchiha and Sharingan. This is because the Sharingan has too many mysteries surrounding it, aside from the many forbidden techniques that a Sharingan is capable of, the likes of the Izanagi and the Izanami, against which you can't even defend if you don't know the details from beforehand. Each Sharingan also has the potential to at least evolve into a Manjikyu, that in itself is completely mysterious. Now that Danzo has transplanted Hashirama cells in a large number of Sharingan that are embedded in that arm of his, it is very likely that he mastered some of these forbidden jutsu. Kuroto has taken a lesson from Orochimaru's example. Even though Orochimaru has Kage-level strength, he lost very easily against Itachi. Both the times he fought, Itachi easily defeated Orochimaru. So, Kuroto obviously takes these lessons to heart. Therefore, at this point in time, fighting against Danzo in head-on combat is a great risk. I will have to look for some method if I want to solve Danzo. With this thought in his mind, Kuroto returned home. Right now, improving his strength is the most important. All of his plans are for this purpose only. Kuroto has always distinguished what's of primary importance and what's of secondary. Mastering the Four Symbols Seal is the most important currently. Because Kuroto believes that as long as he masters the Four Symbols Seal, it will become possible for him to understand as well as master other Uzumaki Fuinjutsu techniques. Once he becomes proficient in Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, he should be able to break the seal used by Yondim-sama on the Dragon Vein, thus completing the next important step in his artificial tailed beast plan. So, condensing all his thoughts, Kuroto focused on learning the Four Symbols Seal. After a while of studying, Kuroto recorded his experience in its practice one by one. After he finished writing, Kuroto thought, This time Team 11 did quite a good job, even slowed down the offensive of Cloud Village. It shouldn't be a problem to change the mission points for another sealing technique. In Kuroto's prediction, it would take him around a week at most to completely master the 4 symbols seal. After mastering the 4 symbols seal, if he can learn 1 or 2 more of the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu technique, then he will be able to have a deeper understanding of it through his Tenseigan. With the credit points of Team 11, changing another Fuinjutsu technique shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? Early next morning, Kuroto went out. Along the way, he picked up signs of dissatisfaction and small disputes among the villagers regarding the peace talks between the Konoha and the Cloud. Without a doubt, many villagers are dissatisfied and angry about the sudden attack by the Cloud Village. After all, hundreds of ninjas died in this small conflict. Every major clan except for the Uchiha also lost someone. So, the fact that Hokage-sama easily accepted Cloud Village's peace talks left many of the villagers dissatisfied. Even if the villagers understand the difficulties of Hokage-sama and the lack of combat power within Konoha, but this can't bring back their loved ones, can it? The attitude of Cloud Village this time was like, first slapping Konoha right in the face and then shaking hand for peaceful negotiation, as the ninja of the greatest shinobi village people can't easily swallow such insult. However, Kuroto doesn't have any opinion in this regard. He is more than clear that the current Konoha is no longer the Konoha of Shodame-sama or Naidame-sama's era. When the Hokage was able to overpower and dominate the entire shinobi world with their individual strength. No matter how great the humiliation, you can only bear it if strength is insufficient. Moreover, this is just the beginning. The troubles that Konoha will be facing in the future are no small either. While thinking these things, Kuroto silently arrived at the agreed meeting place. Not long after his arrival, Shirsue's figure appeared in front of Kuroto. As soon as he arrived, he spoke in an apologetic tone, "Kuroto-san, I am sorry to have kept you waiting." "It's alright, it's only been a while." After a short pause, Kuroto continued, "I have a very important thing to tell you this time." "What is it?" Shirsue asked curiously. However, before starting, Kuroto activated his Byakugan and confirmed that no one was spying on them, then whispered, "Yesterday, I encountered Danzo-sama, and discovered a really disturbing thing about him." Shirsue was shocked. "What, did you also meet Danzo-sama yesterday?" When Kuroto heard Shirsue, he frowned a little. A bad premonition surged in his heart, and to confirm this he asked Shirsue, "Did you also meet him yesterday?" Shirsue replied, "Well, Danzo-sama invited me to join Route, but I refused." "Did he invite you too, Kuroto-san?" Ignoring Shirsue's question, Kuroto hurriedly asked, "Don't tell me you confessed about awakening the Manjikyu to him?" Shirsue nodded. "We did talk about the contradiction and isolation of the Uchiha and the village. To reassure Danzo-sama and the advisors of the Konoha Council. I confessed about my Manjikyu to Sandame-sama and Danzo-sama. They promised to me that if necessary, I am allowed to stop Uchiha clan's extreme intentions." However, Kuroto wasn't too happy about this, as his face sank. He bonked Shirsue's head in frustration, "Stupid." While rubbing his head, Shirsue asked in confusion, "What's wrong, Kuroto-san?" "In regards to this issue, I called you here in the first place." After a short pause, Kuroto continued, "Yesterday, I was able to discover through the Byakugan that Shimura Danzo has transplanted Hashirama cells in a large number of Sharingan. He has already used the forbidden art of body transformation to beyond recognition." "What?" Shirsue froze as soon as he heard Kuroto. However, Kuroto only glanced slightly at Shirsue and said with a sigh, "That old coot has coveted the power of the Sharingan more than anyone in the world, and you just told him about having awakened the legendary Manjikyu Sharingan. Isn't this simply delivering the sheep to the lion's den?" The best countermeasure that Kuroto thought of yesterday was to inform Shirsue about Danzo's obsessiveness for the Sharingan and then induce Shirsue to use Kodo Amatsukami on Danzo, to solve the problem, Danzo, once and for all. But he never thought that Danzo acted so fast. On the very same day, he not only solicited him but also enticed Shirsue to join the route. What worries him more is that Shirsue actually confessed about his Manjikyu to Danzo and Sandame-sama. Of course, Kuroto doesn't know of the stimulus Shirsue received at the Uchiha clan meeting yesterday. Some of the Uchiha completely expressed their intentions of a coup d'état, although the patriarch didn't express his opinion. Most of the opinions were united, therefore Shirsue opted to confess to Hokage-sama. After worrying for a while, Shirsue murmured, "Kuroto-san, I did something stupid, didn't I?" "Damn right you did an extremely stupid thing." Looking at Shirsue's depressed state, Kuroto sighed and asked again, "In addition to Susanoo, the Manjikyu should have more abilities, right?" Without hesitation, Shirsue immediately replied, "Yes, my Manjikyu grants me access to Kodo Amatsukami in each eye, a unique genjutsu of the highest caliber, that allows me to cast a powerful yet subtle mind-controlling genjutsu on the target. Did you talk about this to Danzo and Sandem-sama? Shisui nodded nervously. Well, I am planning to use this genjutsu to change the intention of the Uchiha clan, and stop the coup. So, to convince Hokage-sama of my ability to be able to do this, I didn't conceal about it either. You really are naive, Shisui. True, you can stop the Uchiha from launching the coup, but what will you do about Danzo's intention against the Uchiha? Now, the elders of the Konoha Council will no longer trust you completely. Moreover, there is a 100% guarantee that Danzo will do everything in and beyond his power to get his hands on your Manjikyu. Shisui seemed really tense now. Remember, if Danzo asks to meet you in private, there is only one intention: he will be after your Manjikyu. So, be careful, because if you aren't, then who knows what sort of trouble he might cause for the Uchiha as well as for the rest of the village if he does manage to obtain your Manjikyu Sharingan. Shisui didn't expect the matter to become so serious. Now he was sort of panicked. He always felt that he was doing the right thing, and those crazy people are the wrong ones, but after listening to Kuroto-san's words, he is starting to realize that by confessing about his Manjikyu to Sandem-sama and Danzo, he actually dragged the Uchiha one step closer to their doom. Shisui bowed towards Kuroto and said sincerely, Kuroto-san, please trust me, I would never use Kodo Amatsukami on my companions, please believe me. Kuroto shook his head. Shisui, it has nothing to do with whether I believe you or not. In the face of someone who has the ability to modify others will at any time, no matter who the person may be, they will feel an instinctual fear and suspicious of you, even if it is me. Shisui was a little lost now, but regardless of whether you are loyal to the village, whether you are an upright and kind person, as long you have that ability, you will be considered a threat by others. Taking a short pause to let Shisui digest his words, Kuroto continued, in the end, it is the technique Kodo Amatsukami that makes others too uncomfortable to accept it so easily. By now Shisui realizes the crux of the matter, so he hurriedly asked, Kuroto-san, then, is there some way for me to help the Uchiha? Listening to Shisui's question, Kuroto put one hand on his chin, in a thinking posture, and after a little consideration, he said, for the time being, I have no good method to help you out, but you better not do anything unnecessary. Let the peace talks between Konoha and Cloud get completed, which will take some time, and the village won't risk doing something to the Uchiha in this period. As for the future, give me some time to think about an effective way to help out with the Uchiha problem. Shisui's personal problem isn't that big of an issue. Kodo Amatsukami is indeed worrisome, that is the reason it will be difficult for him to be trusted by the advisors of the Konoha Council, but he will have to make do with that. After all, who told him to just go out there and confess about his Manjikyu and its abilities to Danzo and Sandem-sama so brazenly? Following Kuroto's assurance, Shisui nodded silently. Kuroto thought a little about Obito hidden behind the scenes and doesn't have very good intentions against the village, so he decided to warn Shisui about it a little. One more thing, Shisui, remember to pay close attention to any suspicious people near your clan. What do you mean by suspicious people, Kuroto-san? During the Kyuubi's rebellion, although I wasn't in the village, the information I have collected so far indicates that the Kyuubi was indeed controlled by the Sharingan. Shisui's face suddenly sank. Kuroto-san, do you really suspect that the Uchiha planned Kyuubi's rebellion? It's not about whether I suspect or not, the Kyuubi was controlled by the Sharingan, so the suspicion inevitably falls upon the Uchiha. Glancing at Shisui, who seems to be getting more and more depressed, Kuroto nodded to himself and continued to induce, besides, it doesn't necessarily have to be an Uchiha from the village, you get what I mean. Shisui suddenly lifted his head in shock. He has heard about some of the Uchiha that went missing or left Konoha for no reason. Among them, the name of Uchiha Madara, who founded Konoha together with Shodame-sama, was the loudest one. If the descendants of these missing Uchiha have been left outside the village, then it would make sense if they have a Sharingan. Does that mean there is an outsider with Uchiha's blood, who planned the Kyuubi's rebellion? Shisui asked. It could be, I am not too sure either, but it wouldn't hurt to be cautious, right? Kuroto said. Shisui nodded. He has always felt that Kuroto-san is trustworthy and what he said makes logical sense too. After the two chatted for a while longer, Shisui left. Looking at Shisui's figure walking away, Kuroto shook his head in melancholy. As the most gifted ninja within the Uchiha, Shisui is simply impeccable in every aspect, it's just that he is too immature at understanding and figuring out people's hearts. His kindness, undying loyalty, and habit of naively trusting others became the cause of his death. Shaking his head in sadness, Kuroto walked away. Hokage Building, Council Meeting Room. Sandem-sama was discussing the matters of the peace talks with the Cloud Village with other advisors of the council, mentioning the secret mission of Umbu Team 11, he lightly tapped his desk. Hatake Kakashi, who was waiting outside the meeting room, walked inside upon hearing the tapping sound and explained the details of exactly what he knew, about the entire process and events in completing their task, from the time of leaving Konoha to the time of returning to Konoha. After Hayate Kakashi was finished with the explanation, Sandem-sama said indifferently, "Alright, that would be enough, withdraw." Kakashi nodded respectfully and left the meeting room. Udatane Koharu said after Kakashi left, "So, that was really the case, huh?" Team 11 harassing Cloud's transportation line slowed down their offensive as well as forced the Nibi's Jinchuriki to retreat at the rear. Team 11 has done a great job, they are heroes of Konoha. Mitokade Hamura also said in praise, well, they should be promoted and rewarded appropriately for their work. However, Shimura Danzo had other thoughts as he suddenly said, "You received this report?" "The news I received from the information network of Root tells the other story." Not only Mitokade Hamura and Udatane Koharu, but even Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Danzo, waiting for his explanation. Being the center of attention, Danzo said coldly, Cloud Village slowed down their offensive less because the Team 11 harassed their transportation line but more because of the heavy losses they suffered at the rear. According to the secret intelligence, more than 300 Cloud ninjas, including several elite jonin, died overnight, which prompted even the Raikage to leave the village in search of the enemy responsible. As far as my sources indicate, the Team 11's name came for being responsible for this work. What? Advisor Koharu and Hamura looked at each other in shock. When Sandame heard of this, he suddenly remembered that Uchiha Shursui took the initiative to confess to him about awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, and his face suddenly sank, the tobacco pipe fell and he was left speechless. However, without waiting for Hiruzen to recover, Danzo stood up and asked, "Why didn't your Team 11 report of this? What made them hide such a glorious feat that is worthy of high rewards?" Udatane Koharu asked Hiruzen seriously, "Team 11 has that kind of combat power?" For the 4 members of Team 11 to be able to wipe out more than 300 Cloud ninjas overnight, they must have at least one person with Kage-class combat power. Sandame was left with no choice and stated, "Uchiha Shursui awakened the legendary Manjikyu Sharingan." As soon as she heard this, Koharu was surprised, that power? Did Kagami's grandchild actually awaken it? Hamura whispered to himself, wouldn't he become another Uchiha Madara? However, Danzo didn't stop, "Hiruzen, you seem to be hiding something." Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced murderously at Danzo. However, Danzo wasn't afraid, and said, Uchiha Shursui's Manjikyu allows him to cast the highest level of genjutsu called Koto Amatsukami, which can modify the will of others subtly without making them realize. In other words, he can make anyone into his puppet without even letting the puppet know of it. What? If until now they were shocked, now they were panicked. Danzo smiled coldly as he said, letting an Uchiha have such a dangerous technique in his possession is too harmful, I propose to take immediate coercive measures against Uchiha Shursui. In the brief shock and panic, Hamura immediately said, agreed. Sandem-sama shook his head in denial, Uchiha Shursui is the bridge between the village and the Uchiha. If we take any coercive measures against him, it will only stimulate the Uchiha clan. Now the peace talks with the Cloud Village are in progress, so at this critical moment if any turmoil breaks out, the consequences will be unimaginable. There was no reply from Udatane Koharu, she remained silent the entire time as if she was mulling over something. However, Danzo ignored her, and since he expected Hiruzen Sarutobi to say this, so he didn't force it and said, then put Uchiha Shursui on the monitoring list, and the Root will be responsible for this task. After pondering for a while, Sarutobi finally nodded. Danzo was very satisfied by Hokage's concession, and he suddenly remembered the scene where Special Jonin Hyuga Kuroto refused his solicitation by refusing to join the Root, so he said again, that's not enough Hiruzen, Team 11 concealed information, their loyalty is questionable, I propose to list all the members of Team 11 under monitoring. Mitokade didn't wait for Sarutobi to speak and said while adjusting his glasses, there is no question about Hatake Kakashi's loyalty, he is the disciple of Minato. As the son of Konoha's White Fang, the disciple of Yellow Flash, and one of the heroes of the Third Great Shinobi War, Hatake Kakashi has too much honor upon him. If even Kakashi can't be trusted, then no one within the village can be trusted either. Sandame also nodded, I will conduct personal inquiries with the Team 11, there is no need to monitor all of them. They are all trustworthy Konoha shinobi. Trustworthy? Danzo said with a cold smirk, Hyuga Kuroto is the disciple of Orochimaru, who's to say that he isn't a spy Orochimaru left in Konoha? Allowing this kind of person to stay in the Umbu, Hiruzen, you are being too careless. Hiruzen really disliked that Danzo touched on the matter of Orochimaru, and said in a deep voice, Danzo, there is no need to mention it. However, how can Danzo become silent so easily? He insisted, even if you don't talk about his student-teacher relationship with Orochimaru, he was also part of the cleansing operation, but somehow got lucky enough to survive. Such a person should never be allowed to stay in the Umbu. But if you are insisting on letting him stay in Umbu, then at least let me appoint some root ninja to monitor his action. Sandim-sama was silent now. The matter of Hyuga Kuroto being part of the cleansing operation has been a thorn in Sandim-sama's heart, which makes him unable to completely trust the kid. Because no matter how loyal a shinobi might have been to his village, once abandoned by the village, his loyalty would undoubtedly be compromised. Danzo saw the silent expression of Hiruzen and stopped saying anything as he left Hokage building. Shimura Danzo has known Sarutobi Hiruzen for decades now, and that silent expression indicates Hiruzen's acquiescence to his proposal. On Kuroto's side. After separating from Shisui, Kuroto came to the Forest of Death. Not long after entering the Forest of Death, the little wild boar on whom Kuroto conducted live poison test, suddenly sprang out of the dense bushes and circled around him as it sniffed his trousers. Kuroto was surprised seeing the little guy, not because the other party found him so easily, but because of something else. Hey, how come you grew up so big? Kuroto looked in pure confusion at the little wild boar that was not so little anymore. It has only been about 2 months ago, the little wild boar that was so small the last time Kuroto saw, now reached up to his waist. Kuroto took a closer look to see that this guy had many injuries on the body, there were scars everywhere, and even hairs were quite sparse. Seems like it often got involved in fights with the other wild animals inside the forest. So many injuries. Still as ignorant as ever, looks like only the body grew in size, the brain is the same as before, really like an idiot pig. With a sigh, Kuroto activated his Byakugan. After carefully taking a look around him, and repeatedly confirming that no one was around or spying on him, or there were no signs of abnormal chakra reaction, Kuroto shut his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes glowed in a royal blue color with a white floral pattern shining within them. Printing the hand seals, Kuroto muttered in a low voice, Tenseigan chakra mode. Hush! Kuroto's entire body was instantly covered in a cyan blue chakra cloak and lifted him up in the air. The grass plates beneath his feet were blown away by the high wind pressure. The entire forest around him swayed by the chakra pressure, but none of the creatures felt any danger from this sudden change, because the chakra pressure was quite gentle and serene. The little wild boar on the side didn't panic much by the sudden change and slowly approached Kuroto, who was hovering at 2 feet above the ground. After approaching close, the little boar sniffed around, and upon finding that there was no change in the scent, it again circled around him without a care in the world and seemed to be asking Kuroto to feed him something. Kuroto smiled slightly at the boar's antics, and ignoring the little devil, Kuroto focused on the chakra mode. Although he used the Tenseigan chakra mode once before at the Land of Lightning and even used Silver Will Reincarnation Explosion by merging his chakra with the Truth-Seeking Ball, after all, it was on the battlefield, and the time of usage was also very short, so Kuroto didn't manage to get familiar with the chakra mode. This time he is in a ghostly area of the Forest of Death, so getting familiar with the chakra made without being disturbed or spotted by others is the best opportunity to test his current limits and chakra consumption. Slowly coming back to the ground, Kuroto touched the ground with one hand and injected the Tenseigan chakra into it. As a result of this, with him as the center, all the chakra reactions in a radius of 12 miles were now under his perception. Chakra perception has increased dozens of times. Kuroto was overjoyed by this and poured more chakra into his Tenseigan and looked around attentively. At this moment, even the patterns on the wings of a moth hundreds of meters away appeared as if it was right in front of him. With all these conclusions, Kuroto glanced at the little boar dangling by his side and noticed that the chakra inside its body has grown quite a lot during this time, but the chakra meridians inside its body were not completely connected. Frowning a little, he raised his hand. Instantly, the little boar flew towards Kuroto. No matter how hard it struggled, it couldn't get rid of the restraint of the traction force of rain will pull. Bringing the boar closer, Kuroto ignored all its struggle, pressed his hand gently on its abdomen, and injected Tenseigan chakra inside it little by little. With the sudden rush of the Tenseigan chakra, the chakra volume inside the boar's body instantly grew several times, and the meridians that weren't connected completely were penetrated as it formed a perfect network around its body due to continuous flow on chakra under Kuroto's guidance. Here, it's your reward for helping me with testing the poison. Kuroto now smiled faintly in a good mood. The little boar whose chakra pathway was now connected groaned, swayed, and walked wobbly as if it was in a drunken state. Now leaving the boar to its own antics, Kuroto again focused on himself. With a little understanding, he was able to find that unlike the last time when he had 9 truth-seeking balls circling around him, this time, without the chakra support of the giant Tenseigan, even if he used all his chakra, at most, he was able to bring out only 1 truth-seeking ball. And he can also faintly guess that once he does activate this one orb, all his chakra will be empty. Playing with the truth-seeking ball in his hand like a squishy ball, he thought, if it is the question of maintaining the Tenseigan chakra mode, I should be able to last about 10 minutes, but if use truth-seeking ball for techniques like golden will reincarnation explosion, or silver will reincarnation explosion, I will be hollowed out instantly. Kuroto has long since faced the issue of low chakra volume. But he isn't that worried about this issue now. From the time at Ninja Academy to the Third Great Shinobi War, he has always been the transparent kid, always staying in the background. But what about that? He still reached up to this point, didn't he? How many people are capable of using truth-seeking balls in the entire shinobi world? Countless geniuses and strong ninjas have already been left behind by him. Taking a deep look at the far sky, Kuroto muttered to himself, isn't it just the lack of talent? The issue of chakra volume? The problems to which the solutions can be found are not at all problems in my eyes. The essence of truth-seeking balls is the condensation of high-density chakra into the form of black orbs. Truth-seeking balls encompass the power of all 5 basic natures as well as yin, yang chakra nature. As such it surpasses any single chakra nature, Kekai Genkai, as well as Kekai Toda. Being able to condense truth-seeking balls is more of a qualitative awakening. For this reason, a thought suddenly flashed in Kuroto's mind. What if I use truth-seeking balls to break through the seal applied by Yondim-sama to seal the dragon vein? But after a little consideration, Kuroto gave up the idea. Fuinjutsu is one of the most mysterious and powerful branches of jutsu, and it can be both weird and unpredictable at times. There is close to nothing that can't be sealed using Fuinjutsu, whether those big monsters or tailed beasts or the impure world reincarnations which are in a half-life and half-death state and the illusionary things like the soul of a person. Even the chakra ancestor Otsutsuki Kagaya isn't immune to Fuinjutsu. So, what might happen to the seal or the dragon vein chakra setup once it comes into contact with the truth-seeking ball is sort of unpredictable. Moreover, currently, Kuroto can only summon 1 orb, and if he uses this to break through the seal, all his chakra would be empty. Once the seal breaks and all his chakra empties, Kuroto can only watch the huge chakra of dragon vein rush out uncontrollably. And by then, even if he had mastered all the techniques necessary for the artificial tailed beast plan, he wouldn't be able to do anything because of the lack of chakra. It would be impossible for him to suppress the dragon vein's overflowing chakra. Not to mention, if he doesn't successfully steal away the dragon vein chakra in the least amount of time possible, its signature reaction will be picked up by the other ninja villages. Especially the Sand Shinobi village that's closest to the Rorin. In this series of events, Kuroto will become a helpless little fish. And that too when there wouldn't be a time accident because of dragon vein, who's to say that it wouldn't send him to a different timeline? So, using truth-seeking ball will be a big no-no. He can only increase his Fuinjutsu proficiency to break through the seal used by Yondim-sama. While Kuroto reached this conclusion, he suddenly sensed a ninja rushing towards his direction in the Forest of Death. As soon as he sensed this, Kuroto released the Tenseigan chakra mode and deactivated the Tenseigan. After a while of waiting, a ninja dressed in an umbu uniform appeared on a tree branch before Kuroto, and said, "Hokage-sama has summoned you." Kuroto nodded at the umbu's news and followed him out of the Death Forest all the way to the Hokage building. As soon as he entered the main room of the Hokage office, he discovered that Sandem-sama has summoned all the members of Umbu Team 11, since Kakashi, Guy, and Shursui were already there even before him. With Kuroto's arrival, Sandem-sama put down the tobacco pipe on the side and glanced at the 4 people of Team 11 with a sharp eye, as he asked, "Did your Team 11 conceal any details about the secret mission in the report handed over?" Kakashi's expression shrank as soon as he heard Hokage-sama's words. His mind was only thinking that Hokage-sama was most likely referring to the matter of him awakening the Manjikyu. With a feeling of guilt he felt quite nervous and traces of sweat beads started coming off his forehead. Guy also lowered his head directly, not daring to meet the eye of Hokage-sama in fear that his expression might reveal something. He also thought that Hokage-sama was referring to Kakashi's Manjikyu Sharingan. The 4 members of Team 11 have already reached an agreement to not reveal the existence of Kakashi's Manjikyu. This is because no one can predict what sort of reaction the Uchiha or the Konoha Council might have upon learning that a non-Uchiha awakened Menjikyu, so everyone, and that's including Shisui, decided to conceal it. Lest the Uchiha clan might end up doing something extreme that could intensify the already brewing conflict within the village after getting such shocking news. Kuroto was calmer and only brought out a confused look as if the matter was completely unrelated to him. Shisui was feeling a little awkward, but he was calm nonetheless. The reason for Kuroto and Shisui's calmness was naturally because they knew that Hokage-sama was most likely referring to those more than 300 cloud ninjas that Kuroto wiped out. Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at the four totally silent people, without saying any word, so after shaking his head a little he directly brought out the papers describing the details about this incident that Shimura Danzo passed him, and threw it towards the four people, and said solemnly, "Look at it yourself." When Kakashi and Guy read the details of the information, they were taken aback, and immediately looked towards Kuroto and Shisui with clear surprise on their faces. By the end of the battle, Kuroto and Shisui were the only two people that stayed behind to secure Guy and Kakashi's retreat, so this information must be somehow related to either of them, but neither of them mentioned having killed more than 300 ninjas in the details when they talked about the battle later. Now that both Kakashi and Guy are learning of things like the entire valley being razed to a flat ground, hundreds of ninja buried 6 feet under the mud and rocks, the shock on their faces can be clearly imagined. Their reaction also prompted Sarutobi to turn towards the Hyuga and the Uchiha kid. Kuroto was still calmly flipping through the pages, with an expression that said, "Don't look at me, it has nothing to do with me." Sandim-sama was still silent. Kakashi didn't know what to say. At this time Shisui took a step forward and said, "Hokage-sama, it was me. To not reveal the existence of having awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, I didn't mention it in the mission report." Without waiting for anyone to speak, Shisui continued, "Kuroto-san was unconscious when all that happened, Captain Kakashi was in coma and Guy-san was severely injured by the time I retreated while carrying unconscious Kuroto-san, so the rest of the team, 11, didn't know of this." Listening to Shisui's explanation, Sandim-sama nodded. From Sarutobi Hiruzen's perspective and based on the details of the report he has, if anyone in Team 11 might have the strength to slaughter hundreds of ninjas including several elite jonin in an overnight, then it can only be Uchiha Shisui who has awakened the legendary Manjikyu Sharingan. As for Hitaki Kakashi, Might Guy, or Hyuga Kuroto, all three of them are strong and talented for their age, and no doubt they might even be able to do such things in the possible near future, but at this stage, they don't have enough strength to achieve feats that require Kage-class combat power. Since Cat has come forward to clarify this fact, and the matter was indeed a little hard to express, so it will be overlooked this time, but make sure to not conceal anything related to the mission details from the next time. Is that clear? Yes. All the four nodded. Well, moving past that, Team 11 did great this time. The news of your achievements can't be made public because of your identities as the Umbu Ninja, but the council has consensus on rewarding the four of you. An opportunity to learn advanced jutsu. Don't be hasty in making the decision right away, take your time, and come back any time after consideration. Thank you for your kindness, Hokage-sama. All four responded and left the Hokage office one after another. After walking out of the Hokage building, Guy hurriedly asked, "Shisui, did you really kill hundreds of cloud ninjas alone?" Shisui awkwardly glanced at Kuroto from the corner of his eyes while nodded towards Guy. "Ah, yes, Guy-san." Without waiting for Guy to continue, Kakashi whispered, "Thank you, Shisui." Kakashi was also shocked by the information of Shisui awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, but this made him more grateful towards Shisui for keeping his Manjikyu a secret, and he sort of understands why Shisui didn't reveal about that incident. Shisui humbly shook his head. It's for the peace of both the Uchiha and Konoha. Obviously, Shisui is also a little unacceptable of Kakashi awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan. Even if his pride has been crushed, it is still a little difficult to accept a non-Uchiha awakening the legendary eyes. This is exactly why he understands the possible impact that it could cause once the news of Kakashi's Manjikyu leaks out. If the Uchiha clan learns of this news, it is hard to imagine what they might end up doing. After some more chats, Guy and Kakashi left for training, while Kuroto and Shisui walked towards a secluded place. Glancing thoughtfully behind him, Kuroto whispered, "Thanks, Shisui." Shisui sighed lightly, "Well, whatever, I don't care anymore." Looking at Shisui's tired face, Kuroto faintly said, "Don't worry, things will definitely turn for the better in the future." Shisui nodded, "I hope so, Kuroto-san." The reason why the village is suppressing the Uchiha is also because of their own weakness. And the initiator of most of the trouble that Konoha faces is Obito hidden in the dark. Even the condition of Sandim-sama can be said to have been exhausted. His strength is rapidly declining because of aging. If the successor he had carefully chosen as the Yondaime Hokage hadn't died accidentally, all these problems wouldn't be there. But unfortunately, the young and powerful Yondaime-sama died, and now everything is completely different. The trouble Konoha is currently facing, including the raid from the Cloud Village from the outside and the Uchiha's dissatisfaction inside the village, are all just the follow-up effects of the death of Yondaime-sama. If Yondaime-sama and Uzumaki Kushina were still alive, Cloud Village wouldn't dare to make a move on Konoha, nor would the Uchiha clan get restless. Yondaime-sama dies, and Konoha was entirely messed up, and the person Obito responsible for the death of Yondaime-sama really made the most effective blow on Konoha at the right opportunity and completely broke Konoha's backbone. Kuroto can only sigh at just how much of a devil Obito has become. Taking a light glance behind him, Kuroto said in a low voice, "We are being followed." Shisui nodded, I realized it some time ago." After pondering a little, Kuroto said, "The person following us should be a root ninja." Both Shisui and Kuroto are Umbu ninjas under Hokage. It's the job of Umbu to track and monitor others, no one will dare to target and monitor them. This is because if Hokage-sama doesn't trust his Umbu ninjas, then those Umbu ninjas will directly be suspended instead of being monitored. Therefore, only root ninjas can have the audacity to monitor Umbu ninjas under Shimura Danzo's orders. Shisui didn't care that they were being monitored, and said calmly, "I am loyal to Konoha and will never do something to harm the interest of the village, so I am not afraid of being under surveillance." Kuroto shook his head as he said in a little disappointment, "If only it was that simple." Shisui asked in confusion, "What do you mean, Kuroto-san?" Being under surveillance is a signal of Shimura Danzo's distrust of us, which is not rare, but it also indicates that he isn't afraid to make a move against us. After a pause, Kuroto said with a dark tone, "He can distrust us all he wants, I don't care, but he has to understand that making a move against us isn't a wise choice." When Shisui heard Kuroto-san say this, he immediately became a little worried. And Shisui's worry wasn't without a reason. Since the incident at the valley in the Land of Lightning, Shisui has started to believe that the strength Kuroto showed there is his true strength. Therefore, in Shisui's view, Kuroto-san is undoubtedly the strongest ninjas in Konoha. Even Hokage-sama or the Sannin Jiraiya wouldn't be able to match Kuroto-san. "Kuroto-san, are you really going to do something to Danzo-sama?" Looking at Shisui's look of trepidation, Kuroto sighed, and said, "You don't need to worry too much about it, just make sure to keep whatever I talk with you a secret. Can you do that for me?" Although Shisui was still not satisfied, he nodded nonetheless. Kuroto is no longer afraid of Danzo and the senior management of Konoha. Basically, only those ninjas who are purely dedicated to the village may be afraid of Danzo, those that have an option of defection, which Kuroto now does. Danzo's existence only irks him a bit and nothing more. In the dense forest outside of Konoha village. Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. After releasing the Fireball Jutsu, Uchiha Shinichi knelt on the ground panting heavily, but without wasting any time he immediately stood up again and launched shuriken at the distant target. Since early morning he has been training arduously, even when soaked with sweat and exhausted completely, he didn't stop and continued to put more effort. Shinichi has become a laughing stock of the Uchiha clan ever since he lost to that damn Hyuga Kuroto and had to be carried back by Shisui. Everyone only ridicules him and looks down upon him, even the elders of the Uchiha have started to question his strength. Because of losing the challenge, Shinichi even lost the recommendation from the Uchiha clan for the Jonin assessment, as such he lost the opportunity to become a Jonin. All this has made Shinichi crazy and hateful. From that day on, he decided to train more and more, push himself harder than anyone and regain his lost reputation, which is why whenever he is free, he would always come to this area to practice and train heavily. On a large tree not far away, a strange man with a black cloak and swirl mask sat cross-legged on a branch of the tree as he observed Uchiha Shinichi. After some time of observation, he asked, "So he is the one you found?" On the side of the trunk, Zetsu, whose only half-body was exposed, nodded. "I can feel the hatred in his heart." However, the masked man was not satisfied. Such low hatred isn't enough. Zetsu said helplessly, "He is the only person that best meets your requirement currently. Most of the ninjas of the Uchiha clan serve in the Konoha police force, so generally, it is very rare for them to leave Konoha. However, Uchiha Shinichi has been an exception for some time. In addition to having 3 Tomo Sharingan, his strength is also Jonin class. Moreover, he has hatred in his heart, so I immediately informed you about him." The masked man nodded after a little consideration. "Zetsu, you wait here, I will see if he can be useful." After leaving these words, his body twisted and disappeared inside a whirling spiral. On the other side, the masked man appeared behind Shinichi, and spoke in a deep hoarse voice, "Look at you, such a pathetic sight you are in. Shinichi was shocked by the sudden voice that came from behind him. In reaction, he immediately jumped back and turned around only to see a masked individual who looks completely suspicious no matter from where you look at him. Drawing out his sword, Shinichi asked cautiously, "Who are you?" The masked man laughed mockingly as he said, "It doesn't matter who I am, but I can give you what you want most." Shinichi was furious by the roundabout reply of the masked man and asked in anger, "What do you want?" Masked man still said with a grin, "Ha. I don't want anything. I was just passing by, and I saw such a genius kid of the Uchiha clan training so arduously. This piqued my interest, and after some observation I found you to be quite interesting, so here I am." "Well, too bad, cuz I am not into men," Shinichi replied in irritation. "Ha ha ha." Masked man laughed at Shinichi's joke. However, this reaction irritated Shinichi. "You wanna hide behind the mask? Fine. I'll figure out who you are after I kill you. You can try all you want. But you are not capable enough," the masked man said as he spread his arms open. Shinichi felt insulted. The masked man was treating him like he was nothing, and this reminded him of that damn Hyuga. Drawing his sword in anger, Shinichi rushed towards the masked man. Seeing that the masked was still stupidly standing with arms open, without making any attempt to dodge the incoming attack, Shinichi had a condescending smirk on his face. "Go to hell, you masked freak." But strangely, as Shinichi's sword neared the masked man, it directly passed through his body without any resistance. It was as if the person standing before him was just an elusive figure, not the real body. What? Shinichi was both confused and horrified. Without waiting for Shinichi to recover, the masked man punched him in the stomach that flew him crashing on a nearby tree. Getting up from the ground, Shinichi coughed violently. That punch hurt like hell. Just how much strength he has, thought Shinichi as he tried to figure out just what the hell was going on. Shinichi was now completely alert. He was also confused. Why did my attack pass through him? Is he just an illusion? No. That can't be it. If he was just an illusion, how did he hit me? Or is it that it was also a genjutsu? Shinichi thought probably that was the case, so he immediately activated his Sharingan and looked around. At this time, the masked man spoke, "Is that the best you have?" "Heh. I guess I was hasty, looks like I wasted my time." Shinichi gritted his teeth and shouted at the insult, "Shut up, bastard. I have cracked through your genjutsu attack." After saying that, he formed several seals, fire style, great fireball jutsu. Instantly a huge fireball engulfed the figure of the masked man. Boom. The great fireball didn't stop and burned many trees down to charcoal. Shinichi observed carefully, seeing no movements from the other side. He thought silently, is he dead? However, contrary to what he thought, the masked man suddenly appeared behind him and instantly pressed his shoulder with one hand, dragging him into the spiraling whirl, leaving no trace of either of their presence in the surroundings other than the burning trees and a sword. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.